all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me, as always, is our heroic host. Say hi, heroic host.
Hi, heroic host.
Oh, we get some Wendell voice right off the bat.
Oh, yeah, we're getting it all the... I like how much people have taken to the Wendell voice, because I was like, this can go either way. People are going to love it or hate it.
Oh, love it so much. I was really torn because you've been on before and you were heroic host the first time. I was like, well, he should stay heroic host, but obviously also Vivacious Vicar. Ooh, that's a good...
Vivacious Vicar,
That's a very good alliteration. Sure. And let's start right there. We got lots of stuff to talk about. Let's make a quick $6,700 for Bitcherton.
Yes.
People jumping in right now, why should they go back? What is Bitcherton? Why should they back it on Kickstarter.com/Bitcherton? I don't know what the URL is. I'll put it in the thing.
Yeah, I think it is Bitcherton.com. We were able to lock it down.
Bitcherton.com for sure is that, but then go to Kickstarter too.
Yeah, I think if you go to Bitcherton.com, it's right there. Yeah, donate now is right there, and it takes you right to the Kickstarter. Yes. So Bitcherton, is a improvised comedy podcast, which is kind of like in the vein of Bridgerton, Jane Austen novels, all the Regency good stuff, which is a funny place to kind of have this comedy because there's so many constraints, right? And even within the constraints, I sent it to Dre Clark, who does my movie podcast with me, huge Jane Austen fan, and has kind of called out some of the moves that I made, which is the clip that's kind of going around where it's when a gentleman kisses, they can taste their swears. And she was like, well, even then they wouldn't even talk about kissing. Even seeing, they're like, this is definitely seeing an ankle is like seeing a whole titty, that's what we're working with. And you just have a bunch of comedians just kind of playing within that realm. It's just so fun. And we've already, even in the pilot, you can see the kind of relationships and things we're building up to kind of being laid out. And I think that it's, great. And, right off the gate, I'll answer the question that even my homies sent in the group chat, which is, why do you need $30K for a podcast? And I think the answer is simple. It's to pay people. I think that especially in the comedy podcast world, we've gotten away with lots of favors. I think lots of comedy podcasts, your engineer editors are getting good rates and your guests are getting, nothing. The more popular ones will give you maybe 100, maybe 250, which, for an hour of goofs, that's great. But I think once you start doing a long form seasonal kind of podcast, you that rate kind of bumps up a bit. So that's what that's for, making sure everyone's paid well, and most importantly, paid with SAG-AFTRA, which is, I think, very important, especially for a lot of the writer performers that are on this pod, because I think a lot of us will be losing our WGA insurance because of the strike, followed by the lack of just work in general. So luckily, we have things, lots of us are from Dropouts, and the Dropout, is SAG, and that helps us, qualify for that insurance. Actually, I qualified for SAG insurance for the first time because of my work on Dropout, but I've just been using WGA because that's what I already had. So, that's all to say, it may seem hefty, but really this is just what it really costs when you want to have everyone get paid.
Yeah, I should say this is one of those goof 'em up hours that runs on favors. Whoops! Look, I would have loved to start paying people.
Look, you're a one-man operation. You're doing all the work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think it's once you start hiring out people and expecting those favors, that's when it gets like that. But that's how you start. Typically, even, our relationship pod right now, we're still building up, and, even in complete full transparency with ads, we're still only making maybe $100 a month, so it really is working your way up to the point of where you have these bigger podcasts and on these big networks. networks, that are not able to pay out, that's when it starts being like, but I think, Jordan, you're fine. I wasn't like, this wasn't a passive aggressive way to be like, Jordan ain't even paying me shit,
it's
man.
all guilt over here.
Yeah. No need to guilt. I think it's all just, relative, right? Where it's like, if this isn't like a serious XM type show, which they are paying, don't come for me, please keep inviting me back. But I think that when it's indie, it's indie, and when it's not, it's not. And I think the what we're trying to do is make it not indie, and making sure that everyone can get paid.
And get that good health insurance. It's just
Yes,
it's so
indeed.
important.
Yes, indeed.
You mentioned the cast. Let's run through them.
Yes.
We got Cassie Wilson. We got Brian Flaherty. We got Carolyn Page. We got Katie Maravich, and a co-star of Never Stop Blowing Up, Alex Songsha. What a killer group. And then just like monster guest stars lined up for every episode. I didn't write those down, but I know Reka, Vic, you got Jasper William Cartwright coming in, I'm sure, to criticize all of your British accents. Teo, Peter Gross, which there's I don't know what happened. Brian Flaherty, when I talked to him, he was like, he told me all the names off camera because they hadn't announced them yet. And he said Peter Gross, and I missed every name he said after it because I love Wait, Don't Tell Me so much. And like my brain just stopped working. And I was like, Peter Gross. And then like afterwards, I was like, I missed everyone else he said. But yeah, it's going to be, I think I've listened, obviously, to the pilot. Look, I'm a Kickstarter backer. We'll be full transparency over here. The pilot's fantastic, and following the sort of premise of Mission to Zix, of guest stars coming in every episode to drive plot, and I think all of it seems like so much fun. The pilot is delightful. You play the vicar, as well as. I guess like spoilers for the pilot if you don't really want to know, but like
zoom ahead if you don't want any pilot spoilers.
Old Lady Big Withers, did I get the
Lady
name right?
Like,
just such a great reveal. First of all, that the Gossip Mag columnist is also the vicar. So funny in general, but also so brilliant, I think, for the show moving forward, because now you're going to get that every time the vicar is having a conversation with anyone else and they like drop some juicy gossip, you're like, uh-oh, you fucked up because Lady Big Withers in the room with you and you don't know it.
And that was so fun, just kind of having some of those scenes where gossip was being dropped and kind of having, me being like, oh, can you give me a little more information? And, leaning into the fun of that. I think that was my favorite. I like the idea of someone just trying to play it cool when they are not playing it cool. But he's the and it's funny because we only did the pilot, but we kind of talked through kind of our plans for the whole season, and that truly is like like that is what has kind of driven me, because we've been like, okay, great, we're going to try out this like having this whole like weird connection to someone that you usually confess to, you're usually confessing your sins to, and you're usually talking all that stuff. Like that gives you so much weird access to people's whole drama, and having that be the person who's like writing saucy, salacious details, it's very great. It's super fun and funny.
Super fun choice. Super funny. The pilot is fantastic. Boy, Katie Maravich just swinging for the fences right out the gate, starts the pilot in a ditch. Truly, just like, I was not prepared. I've said this to other people that I interviewed. Like, I thought like there was some weird other sound coming from somewhere in my house, because you can hear her wailing softly. And I was like, wait, what's where is this? And I was like, it's in the podcast. Oh, and then it's Katie's in a ditch. So funny. Everyone is so funny and so fantastic. how did you land on horny vicar
Oh, that's so funny.
as your character choice?
Well, we were looking for like, yeah, so the whole Vicar Big Wither thing was just a thing we found just in finding characters. So I knew I wanted to do the Vicar because I felt like that would have rounded out the cast more. But for me, what really kind of solidified it was the connection to him being Lady Bigwither. And we talked about that and we are like, oh, that's so good. And through that, which I was trying to say, but I kind of stumbled through and around, never really quite landing on it, was that he has his own motivations for why he's doing everything he's doing. And it's going to be fun trying to like sprinkle that in. And having that information coming into it, there's already been things that, he has been doing to kind of hint to that, to kind of be like, okay, this is why this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. And it's very fun to kind of play in that realm. I like to have moments where when you kind of get more information, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. Okay, I see now. And hopefully people do see.
Yeah. Yeah. Vicar Devoutly, so good. Also, Brian is your son, just like
Yes.
so brilliantly fantastic. It's funny when I talked to Brian, he had mentioned that like if you guys raised $1 million, he would turn it into a TV show.
Yes.
And I was like, I want to see like you and Brian play father and son. That's just a pairing that makes sense.
Say nothing,
roughly the
say
same
nothing
age.
about it.
Do you remember your reply to Brian when he cold emailed you to ask you to be on the show? It was 2 words, if that helps.
Oh, was it hell yeah?
It was let's boogie.
That's so funny.
A thing I have now fully incorporated into my email writing. I was just like, that's so fantastic. Like Brian was like, I wrote him this huge email of just like, here's all the details you might want to know. And like, I didn't know him, but obviously like we knew a bunch of similar people. And he wrote back, let's boogie. And I was like, that's the perfect response of just like, yep, I'm in.
That's my go-to, especially when it's something that seems interesting or something I really want to like, try. Like if you present me with an idea that seems like exciting, seems, like fun, you're gonna get let's boogie. Like, because that is like how I kind of like feel. It's like all the stuff we get to do is just like play with our friends, every like the VIPs, the D20s, the actuallys, the Bitchertons. It's getting to like play with friends. So for me, it's not like okay, let me like look into this, or if I have the time, it's like, nah, let's boogie. That sounds good. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. So you were my last cast member to get to for Bitcherton.
Yes.
I mentioned this to Carolyn Page, and I was like, it's not been like an intentional, I'm going to save Ify for last, although obviously you are a fantastic closer. I was just like, Ify is so busy, and she described you as a bag of holding of podcasts. How do you have time for anything that you do?
It is truly just finding the space for it all and just bouncing around. I think that I technically right now, not technically, I have 3 pods, right? Me and M's pod, which I feel like that one's, kind of like the easiest lift of everything because we just pull these questions. Really, the hardest thing is like getting the guests and scheduling them. But for the most part, like we just sit down and just like go off the top of the dome. So it's like the easiest of all of them. And if we can't find a guest, we just do it with the 2 of us. Whereas like, Max Film, I have to watch a whole movie and then record the pod. Top Chef or TV Chef Fantasy League, we have to watch a whole show and then do the pod. But I feel like with Top Chef, TV Chef, Fantasy League, it's all shows that I would watch anyway. And in movies, I would like to reach out. So really, it's just everything kind of like leans into itself, and like because there's the time where it's like okay, me and him will just go watch a movie, and we're watching the movie I need to watch for the pod. But now that's a time for us to hang out and see a movie, or like we're sitting on the couch watching a show, and we get to do that. I think when it all gets buck wild is the moment I book a writing thing or a TV thing, because then that's like where it just like you can Lego when you're freelancing, you can Lego your time, right? Like, yesterday was a pretty packed day where I was like, okay, I woke up, went to go see Maxine for Max Fun. Went to go do a session 0 for a live play of a game that we're going to do at Comic-Con, all the way in Santa Clarita. Drove there, drove back here, recorded Max Fun, called a car, me and him hopped in it to go do the great debate show where Damien and Matt Mercer were there with the wonderful, lovely drag queens, and then came home and we just kind of sat on the couch and like knocked out. So it really is just like Legoing time like that. But then when it is like, okay, I'm in a writer's room now from 9 a.m. to at least 6 p.m. Now that's where it gets a little harder. But I've made it happen. I was the whole time I was writing Grand Crew, I was also writing for Apex Legends, and that also kind of had like a little assistance with the difference in schedules, because that was during the like lockdown period where we were still kind of slowly coming out, but for the most part we were trying to stay safe. And so Phil Jackson, my good friend, but also was my showrunner and boss, he's so great at like taking the things that he disliked as when he was coming up as a writer and being like, we're not going to do that. And so for this, he was like, yo, we're wrapping at 3. He was like, I can't sit on a Zoom for the full 8 to 12 hours. We're wrapping at 3. And I was like, perfect, because Apex Legends, is on the same, like, we're on the West Coast time. So like up until 5, people are still in the office, still working. So I would just like hop off of that Zoom, do every meeting I would need to do from like 3:30 to like 4, sometimes even 5. And then I would just be writing for the rest of the night about like almost 15,000 lines for Newcastle, the character I was making, and just rinse, repeat. And then it got a little harder when we did Twisted Metal, because that was in the office. So now that switched up everything, where I couldn't like necessarily jump into Zooms. I would do Zooms sometimes during my my lunch. I would do a Zoom meeting and we would talk through it, and then I would get home and just write all through the night and then get started. I mean, it's definitely, I wouldn't suggest it for most people, but I will say it was possible. And now, even now, it feels like a ticking time clock, because I've kind of had these industry start stops so many times in the past few years, because we had the 2020 lockdown, we've had the strike, so like now I'm seeing everything kind of pick back up, and I'm like, okay, so this is where it's going to get a little dicey, and it's going to need me to pull back on stuff. But luckily, and the thing that I really, really enjoy is that dropout's the easiest to kind of like schedule around, because everyone there is also doing a million things.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like very much segmented in a way that allows for us to do all the other things we do. The podcasts and stuff, that's going to be a jungle as well. But we're going to make it fit.
Yeah. Look, it's the. I mean, the great news is the people like us, like me, on the internet who love your content have just unlimited amounts of it. I don't have time to listen to all of the podcasts that you're in, which feels wild to me because you are making them. But I always enjoy when I get to see like a clip on social media, because they're always good, and I'm like, great. This one I can knock out like a 30-second clip here, perfect. I can enjoy like a really solid joke. I'm really loving the clips that you're posting from you and M's podcast, the couples podcast. But yeah, it's remarkable how much you are doing, and Herculean, which makes sense because you've got the muscles for it.
Yeah, it's really the ADHD going hammer. It's just the need to, because the thing is like when you let your ADHD run wild, it's you starting a bunch of tasks and like leaving them out to dry. But when you're able to like get that, code loop to come back to the top of the stack and just kind of get your nice like infinite loop, you can kind of use it to your advantage.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned Dropout. Never Stop Blowing Up. We're in the thick of things.
Oh yeah. This is
I'm
why I'm the last one. I want to be clear. We've mentioned that I'm doing a million and one things, and you might think it might be a scheduling, but when we were scheduling, Jordan was like, "Well, with the announcement of Never Stop Blowing Up, I want to push it because I want to." Speaking of people trying to do a million things at once, he's like, "I want to get it both. I want to get a Never Stop Blowing Up. I want the Bridgerton. So let's do it."
Yeah, look, you have very limited hours. I'm not.
Yes.
If I get 1 hour with you every 6 months, I need you to have had maximum projects for me to talk to you about, just so that I can enjoy them myself. Not because we need time. Not because I need content to fill with you. But yeah, Wendell, obviously incredible. I don't know if we were already recording when I said I love the voice. We were. That was the very first thing we said.
Yes.
We chatted for a while before I hit record. Wendell's so good. Vic Ethanol. I couldn't love Vic Ethanol. That opening scene of you on the truck, I think, so funny. Like absolutely brilliant. And obviously, like it's what day is it? It's Monday for week 3. So we have not seen episode 3 yet of Never Stop Blowing Up, but we have seen episode 2 where you revolutionized how the game was played by having your reflection talk back to you. How good did that feel at the table when everyone was like, wait, we can do that? And Brennan's like, everyone do this now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, I talked about this a bit in Adventuring Party, and I will keep saying it. It really was just leaning on my comedian instincts because I was basically just watching everyone kind of go through this natural loop of like fish out of water in this intense action scenario, which is like the natural move. You are a video store clerk who has whatever quirks and qualms that you have, and now you're in this action movie in this like larger than life character. You're going to be like, whoa, what's happening? And everyone's kind of figuring it out. And I felt like with someone like Wendell, he's not, he is someone who has decision paralysis all the time. We've seen it so many moments up until this point. So he's not going to be someone who just kind of figures it out. And I wanted to do something that kind of shakes up the pattern that we were seeing. So I was like, I was sitting in that moment being like, I think I want Vic Ethanol to talk to him. And I wanted Vic Ethanol to be the like basically still leaning on like an action movie-esque, where it's like it's less of having Vic be someone he's taken over, more of Vic being his Tyler Durden, the side of him that he wishes he was. And that I was hyped with how hyped Brennan was, because I was taking that swing, and I was just like, we're gonna say that this is he's gonna need this motivator to go. And what happens when you are existing in this character and this character knows you're there.
Yeah, and it led to a bunch of great moments. I think it was I think it was Izzy that said, "Do I Ify?" Which is just like, and you gotta love being a verb at the table that you have like fully just like knocked it out of the park that much. I'm curious, like, where did Wendell come from? I know you've talked about, because you also have like a burgeoning Magic the Gathering podcast, Twitch stream. Like, you play Magic the Gathering now as well, professionally, it seems. And I know you talked about, I've seen you talk about that you started that as a high school club, and learned that there was a difference between casual Magic the Gathering players and people with money.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So is Wendell inside of you still? I'm assuming the Magic the Gathering Wendell character came from your high school experience.
Oh yeah. Like, Wendell it's like so much a part of me. I mean, Allie grew up in Lake Elsinore, they talked about that. I lived in Lake Elsinore too, which is why it was very funny. So like there, like a lot of Wendell is a lot of me, and I didn't really sink too far into it. But there was like a moment of like arrested development because I think it had to do with like a lot of like undiagnosed ADHD, which meant that I was like getting half information all the time. And one of the things that I kind of dealt with that was by the time we were graduating, everyone was applying to colleges and universities. Like I was so out of sorts with like what all that meant that I thought that like when a university sent me like a invitation to submit, and I was like, well, I can't go to a university. You got to do a college first. You go to college, then university. And my dad was like, what? And I was like that's how deep into it. And it was like partially like dealing with, you know, like not like growing up, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do art. My dad's, Nigerian from Nigeria, and like many immigrant parents are like, hey, you should do something that will make you money for sure. And just kind of like stamped down that, that 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 whole kind of push for that. So I just kind of was like, all right, well, all right. And I think without, then I was like, okay, then like I like computers. I want to be a game designer person. Like, let me go take programming classes. And then they were like, no, you need to go to a college, not ITT Tech. And so like every option that I was like trying to go to, I was just getting shut down. So I was like, I think I kind of disassociated from the college experience where I was like, I'll get to that when I get to that, and just focused on like living in the moment. And so like by the time I was actually in college, I really didn't know what I was doing. And it wasn't until much later when I found out like, oh, you take these general ed classes, then you take some that leads to your major, then you transfer, and then you kind of focus more on your major because you knocked out general ed in college. And when I was kind of on that path, when I finally kind of got aligned on it, it was also when I found comedy. And there was like an administrative error that essentially led to me having to wait one more year. And I was kind of at the point already where I was like tired of how long it was taking. And I think it was definitely because of knowing my peers were so far ahead of me that I was like, okay, then I think I'm gonna focus on this comedy thing that I love. I'm gonna just focus on the comedy, and we're just gonna just go from there. And so, yeah, after that point, that's when I joined UCB, and I just kind of, let just let it hang. I just was like, okay, we're done here, and then it worked out, which was, I will say it was very scary for the first time because I was like, I'm doing this thing that we don't know many people who have succeeded by it. And what I tell a lot of people, because a lot of people go, oh, you grew up in LA, so this must have been like an easy decision to make. And I was like, no, because I grew up in LA and I didn't know anybody who did it. So what makes that hard is like, it seems even more unattainable because you're like, I'm here, I'm in this Hollywood land, and I don't know anyone who made it except for the girl who went to middle school with me, who played Malcolm's crush in Malcolm in the Middle, and was very dicey about how she got that role, which now as an adult, I know it's because she didn't know what she did. Her parents just submitted her for it. Yeah, it makes it so much harder. But yeah, I took that swing, and luckily, I was able to do it. But the period between like getting to community college and getting there was just me just aimlessly wandering. And that's actually how I ended up getting that job at the county, because I can tell that my dad was like, oh, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. Little did he know. Little did he know the reason this kid doesn't know what he's doing is because everything he tried to do, you were like, no, it has to be this exact version of what I want. Uh, so yeah.
Well, speaking of comedy, this is my first of two apologies that I owe you.
Mm.
The first apology is, look, there's nothing I hate more when I see a comedian's Instagram story and they post like, ask me questions or whatever, and someone's like, when are you coming to X city? And they're like, I'm literally I'm in the airport of your city. I did 8 shows the last week. Where have you been? And you posted, I'm gonna be in Austin in July. And then you
Yeah.
posted, where should I go? And I wrote Austin, just like the
Yes.
biggest jackass in the world. I
Well,
was
it's
like,
funny
oh
because I
no.
feel like it was a lot of business on there, and I think I just I can see why you didn't might not have seen it. There was a lot of words, and it's and I don't even I mean that like not even in a condescending way, but I am in the same way where like I said ADHD, I'll read enough and be like, okay, I don't this probably
Yeah.
isn't in my city, and
Raph,
yeah,
Ify, and Armando are doing comedy together. So
yeah,
cool. That sounds like a
and
great thing in Los Angeles.
maybe even Alex Songsha. So
Hey,
yeah, yeah. I saw them at a stand show and I was like, "Oh, you do stand up?" And I was like, and they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm trying to get like dropout folks doing stand up shows around the country." And they were like, "I'm down." So yeah, we're gonna get that set up. As a matter of fact,
yeah.
I'm gonna send that text right now.
Great. Well, while you're sending the text, that's the Fallout Theater in a date in July. I don't remember when.
I think it's August actually.
It's a date in August.
Yeah.
Coming so soon to Austin, Texas. If you, like me, are in Austin and want to go see brilliant stand-ups, do brilliant stand-up. And I'm going to keep vamping until Ify looks up, which is great because I don't. There's actually no reason it's great, but
Yeah.
it is
And
really exciting.
And don't forget the London one. All London
Oh yeah, no,
listeners.
yeah.
I'm gonna be there September 6th. It's getting nice and packed out, and I feel like as it gets closer, it's gonna ramp up more. So get your
Yeah.
tickets as soon as possible.
Yes. Do you have London plans? Do you have anything you're like looking forward to? Is this your first time going, or have you been before?
I've been before, and I had a good time. But this, I'm definitely planning to meet up with a bunch of friends. Definitely gonna see Jasper. Jasper's gonna be showing up, and yeah, it's gonna be a really fun show.
So exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for the Austin show. We should then transition to Apology 2, which is my random text that I sent to you. I'm guessing you have experienced this before as well, which is I was talking to Glenn Buzan, and Glenn was laughing a lot at things that I was saying. And that gives you that like high of I'm gonna chase this feeling no matter what. And Glenn was like, I have a pitch for actually, and I was like, I can text it to Ify right now. And Glenn thought that was funny, and I was like, then I'm just gonna keep going with it.
Oh,
And
what are you apologizing for? Everything you texted is in motion.
oh,
So
amazing! Well,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah. No,
Okay.
that stuff helps. If I
Oh,
don't
good.
respond, it's not because I'm like mad or anything. It usually means I opened it, said I was going to respond later, and just didn't.
Fair enough.
So like yeah. No, there's no apologies needed. That was all
Great.
great advice because it was a perfect culmination of things, and the things that we were doing for that is like going into motion. It's all good stuff. I was looking forward to it, so like getting that information
I
was
love
good.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, speaking of, because obviously it was actually related. I don't know if I said that or not. Actually, God, I'm loving this season so much.
Oh man.
Look, despite what the just vileness of Reddit would say, I think it's a great season, and everyone I know agrees with me.
It's so funny. I think that it's a balance. I think that there were some things that were said that I think definitely made sense. I think there were some criticisms that I think worked and did it. And I think there was like, it's so funny because as a player, my viewing experience for actually is very different than someone who just watches. And I never considered that, actually is jeopardy for a lot of people, and that there's a lot of weight in being able to play along, and the tempo of the show has to move in a way to like have folks play along, which, I think just being flat out blunt with it was like when we did a lot of the shiny stage stuff that kind of is more kinetic, sporadic. We're looking at it for a more fun viewing experience, but I think folks who like want to play along don't like that. that being said, that is not the entirety of the audience. There are some folks who just like watching actually. So it's one of those things, right? When you make artistic choices, it's never going to be, you will never be able to make an artistic choice that makes everyone happy. I think you can try your best, and I think I will always try my best to split the difference, where I want something that's exciting to look at and watch and that's kinetic, while still being able to play along and doesn't feel like you have to pause it 50 million times. It was really wild when I learned that. People were like, well, I pause it to play along. I was like, oh, I mean, even with Jeopardy, I just play along at the tempo. I don't need to pause. But if that's how you enjoy it, then we are going to try our best to give you tools to do that. I think, things like, Miyazaki versus Miyazaki, that's a perfect example of like blending those two. You have the kinetic running from both sides of the stage, but since it's a binary answer, it's very easy for you to play along with that one and say your choice, see where everyone lands, get it. I think when we had the ones where people go up and put hats on things, I think that was harder to follow because at first, we didn't have all the selection side by side so that you can do it along. That one, I think, is still fun to see people kind of run. I think there was really fun moments. I think, and what's interesting is like, there's episodes where people like it and there's episodes where people were complaining about it. Like, I think people really liked it in the Jordan, Demi, and Jarvis episode.
That was such a good episode.
Which is and then there was like an episode they didn't like it. I think also like what's interesting is the kind of blending of comedic styles and how it's received. I think that a lot of people felt like Jonah was bullied for real, which like, it's very funny. It's very interesting to kind of see.
It's so wild. But people were like, no, Jonah was really mad at the end of the episode. He was really
not. But that's just the nature of it. I think that people like the fun thing about actually, but I think what can be a double-edged sword sometimes is it's very easy to find someone on that couch that you like resonate with and you're like, that's me. And I think in an episode where like Jonah's the nerdiest person on the couch, you have a lot of people being like, that's me, I'm Jonah. And then to see Jonah get bullied, even though these are by like two of Jonah's really close friends, like they all of them are like, we are all buds. And then 90% of people who are on that couch, I'm really good friends with. So like, they're like, bullying him, but it's like for comedians, it's funny to be mean to your friends because you know that you love each other. But I think when you put yourself in the place and you're not friends with Alana and Harvey, it's very easy to be like, they're being assholes to me. How dare they, And I think like the fun of like, if you're being bullied is you're going to play into it, but you're not actually mad. And I think, another kind of, reminder is like, if anyone was ever being that mean to someone, unprohibitedly, that like we would have stopped down and like
probably wouldn't have made it to air.
You would never see anything. But at that said, everyone is just having a good time. And like, I think the thing you don't see is like, but when we would stop down and Milana and Harvey was like, hey, is it like cool? Are we? And Jonah being like, yeah, no, that's funny. You should keep doing it. Like that you didn't see. And I think that is where, the disconnect often happens. But I think that there was also a lot of people who thought it was so funny. I see, and that's the thing. When big swings happen, you have people who don't like it, you have people who do like it, you have episodes people love, you have episodes people hate, that's why like, I feel like in the era, rest in peace to the Discord, where people would feel some type of way about talking. I tried to be in there as little as possible. Because you have like folks who are like afraid to like air their criticism because they're like, well, Ify might be in here, and it's like, I don't take it personally. Like, you're watching a show, you're free to have the opinions, even if I don't agree with it. You're like, that's just what you think. I think as long as it's like criticism and not just like being mean, which no one ever was mean. I feel like in that Discord, it's very funny to see the difference. I feel like Reddit can sometimes be like mean, but even then, I've been on the internet for over a decade, and like everyone is, the way I kind of like digest information is always from the space of like, okay, where are you coming from? What is this? So I never am like able to take it personally, because I'm usually like, oh, because you feel this, this might be what is happening, and this is more so you just mistrap and less of a real criticism, so It is.
Also,
Yeah.
a lot of selective memory going on for what trap
Oh
seasons
yeah.
were like, where they're like, it used to be easy, and it's like, nope, it was always people randomly guessing.
Yeah, I mean
There was
that's what the and I will say, and this is the only place I'll do it. I'm only going to start doing this on um on your pods, because I feel like sometimes I'll do it in Red and people just either ignore it, and like 3 months later someone will say something about it and I'm like, okay, I get it. You don't want me in the space policing, so I don't post in the Reddit unless we're doing like
an
a
AMA.
Q&A, AMA. But I feel like one thing that we changed kind of writing this next season and that I thought about is that I feel like we were focused on the one thing me and Brian did not want to happen was us to take over and people go, damn, it's so easy now that Brian was here, because like there was like a ramp to the show that it got harder, and we didn't want it to feel like because we came in. And I think in that we did make it harder. And I think it's because we more so made it niche questions that were incorrect, instead of more things that were just like slightly wrong. You know what I mean? So instead of being, so it's like in this episode of XYZ, X person looks at X person and says this. And the thing that's wrong is like either what was said or the person it was said to. And like it's hard enough to try and remember episode XYZ that once you get in that, we're in the weeds, that even like you're like, I know this property. And I feel like, things that I think perfectly capture it are things in the vein of the pet cemetery question, which I thought more people would just be fired up about, but people were fired up about different things that episode, which was the misspelling of cemetery, which is one of the first kind of don't quote me on this because I didn't watch every episode to confirm this, but one of the first spelling error questions, and which was
that wasn't a literal the spelling game that used to be like spell this thing, of literally just like, hey, that's wrong in the question, can you get it?
Exactly. And that was dangerous because we had a few errors that were unintentional, like forgetting the colon in Magic the Gathering, and calling someone the
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yes.
Oh boy, the internet.
Where everyone was like, oh man, it sucks that we got that wrong. I didn't care. What I cared about was like, we have a question where you're correcting something wrong in the text, and for that to really kind of shine, we probably shouldn't have made those mistakes. But I think we're just it was me and Brian's first season where we know what we know what we can edit, and it's only going to get better, so exciting.
I've said very publicly on the internet and now just to you, I think it's a fantastic season.
I will say, as much as it was very funny because I did see that person go, did you ask how everyone in the Reddit hates it? And it's so funny because and apologies to everyone for revealing this. We have the data, we see the data, and this is like a very successful season. And on top of that, for all the people who are mad in Reddit, this doesn't account for the people who are coming up to me in person. This doesn't account for people who are DMing me stuff. This doesn't count for people who are tweeting it. It's like, I guess like in your like Reddit hole, when you start a thread about how this season isn't good and everyone who agrees joins you, it makes you feel like y'all are the majority. I'm sure that might feel that way, but I can pretty confidently say that isn't a majority opinion. I think that it's a minority opinion, and I can only hope to do better and better as we go forward, and and hopefully it gets you excited again, or hopefully you like this, or you get what you're looking for. But I think it's just doing better at what we're already doing, because it's doing pretty fucking good.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that, because I let Christina texted me the night her episode aired and was like, have you watched it yet? To just be like how important it was to her that I saw her just wipe the floor with her competitors.
Oh, it's so funny how competitive Christina is, that I'm excited to hit finished the trilogy, but
Mhm.
throw her in the arena. It's like, okay, you getting real hyped up and all this. Let's throw you in the arena.
Yeah.
Let's get you in there. And we're really trying to, me. I'm trying to build I want to still have that element too of like the OG gamers, the people who take it really seriously. And I think when that happens, that's going to be that's going to be those ones. Like I said, I'm trying to do the impossible, which is like make something from everyone. And I think when you have a show that has 12 episodes, you can, I think these themed ones allow people to kind of enjoy it. Cause one thing I've noticed was ever since we've started doing the themed ones, and by we, I mean, even before I was hosting when
Mhm.
Trap was doing it, there were a lot of people who were like, oh, I don't watch them actually, but I'm able to watch this because I the nature of the themed episode, it's something out of my wheelhouse, and this makes it fun to see.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel the same way, where I want to be setting up a show that's like fun and everyone can enjoy it because they're like, oh yeah, this is like fun for me.
Yeah. The theme episodes have been super fun. Sort of, I guess. Look, speaking of theme episodes, Jonah obviously, besides being bullied, directed your special for the big team, which we're getting at Christmas. I mean, I don't know the actual date, but it's our December release.
Yes.
A beautiful big team Christmas. How excited are you for all of us to have a new Christmas tradition, which is watch the big team Dropout Presents?
Oh man, that's super fun. I didn't know that information was out, but
Sam announced it in an interview, so I am not.
Okay.
This was public information. I did not get this in an interview.
Look, I figured if you were saying it, it was. I did not. I am well aware of you being on point. So don't even no need to feel like you need to clarify. But yes, that is going to be super fun. It is I'm excited to just kind of see everyone's reaction to the specials and do it, because I mean, it doesn't seem like odd to know that I'm watching this space to see how this all kind of like shakes out in regards to me, and maybe doing my special out for on the Dropout platform.
Yeah, look, Hank Green and Adam Conover, get lost. We want Ify special on Dropout Presents.
Oh,
that's
yes,
what the people demand it.
Like, we can all like let it live on the same place. We don't have to put two bad bitches against each other.
Delightful. Yeah. Well, look, I know we are so far over time.
Yes.
I'm trying,
but we're having a good time.
We're having a good time.
We'll have to run it back. We'll run it back sometime in the future.
Yeah.
But hell
look,
yeah.
Definitely not tease or anything. PAX East was so much fun. I think we had an absolutely delightful time. A true like. If it was a first test case of like actually panels in the wild live, wildly successful, and let's say hopefully more to come. How about that? And also obviously, look, we didn't even get to talk about Samurai Lessons. It's so good. It's just Ify fans are being fed constantly on Dropout content. It's delightful. All right, Ify, besides Bitcherton, anything else people need to know about what's going on in your life they need to go support immediately?
Definitely listen to me and M's pod, our relationship podcast. It's been fun doing it. It's been fun having fun guests on. So yeah, don't miss out on that. I think also follow me on the social medias. That'll keep you up to date on all the shows we have planned already. Things like, Austin is coming up. We'll be in DC. That's pretty locked in, and Portland are pretty locked in. So we'll just kind of bounce around, and I'm gonna try and add some more shows before the end of the year to just keep the good times coming and rock out that way.
Yeah, London as well. If
Yes, London.
if you're
I know.
London based, go get
London. If you are based in London, let's do September 6th. I know there are people in other parts of Europe who are like, oh man, yes, get your London friends to go. The more successful this show is, the more successful we can be, the more of these I can do in London.
Yes. Yeah. Ify, thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to more of Bitcherton. So looking forward to a universe where I have time to listen to all the podcasts that you are on and host and all of those things, because they're all delightful. And I can't wait for more. Actually, season 11. We're in season 10 right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Season 11 coming probably next year.
No,
but
we're
someday.
in season 9. The next season
season 9, season 10. Yeah, it's coming. We know that because that happened at PAX. That was announced at PAX East, so that's not a surprise. There was a transition in my head that I had. Anyway, Ify, thank you so much.
Yes.
Never Stop Blowing Up, all the other things. It's delightful as always to talk to you.
Yes.
And I don't know how to end an interview still, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.
All right, bye.